Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Brief History of Mystery. I'm here with my mate Stormy. Yes, it is his real name. I keep calling you Stormy, but it's actually Storm, isn't it? Stormzy.
Storm, Stormy, Stormosaurus Rex. You pick, man. I'll answer to anything.
But we are here today talking live because the UAP report has come out, and obviously, disclosure didn't happen. And we're all shocked and disappointed, and to be fair, really disappointed. But what was your initial sort of reaction when you saw it came out?
Well, for one thing, I'm actually surprised it did come out. Because you always hear, well, this report is going to come out and such, and it's like, well, yeah, and it never does. And then when it did come out, and my first thought, well, I need to go get some gin. And then I started reading through it, and it's just like what we were talking about last week. It's bland. It's more or less what we already knew. It's been dumbed down with hardly any real facts except one big thing. Oh, we've identified one thing.
One of them.
The other ones we don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And then again, it plays into Lou Elizondo's fear mongering, and he's been at for almost a year now.
Threats. What are the threats? Let's identify this threat. I think it's incredible, really, that nobody seems to be asking the question. It's like, right, okay, there are these incursions, stuff is going on, and the largest intelligence gathering agency on the planet ever has no idea what any of it is. Yeah. And that seems to be fine.
Right.
So let's have a chat about what is actually in this damn report before we strip into it. So first page, nothing really, big introduction. Some assumptions they made. Page 2, they talk about so they were basically asked, weren't they, to identify the threat that these UAPs pose to national security, air defense, and whatever's flying in the sky at the time. So I mean, bumping into things. So, and they wanted to understand the threat so that they can develop policies, technologies, training for US personnel if they do encounter a UAP. So I mean, it's all very there. Okay, that's great. So they're actually saying, after we've had UFOs for 70 or 80 years flying over the United States and everywhere else, that now all of a sudden they're going to have a think about what those encounters might mean, or what to do if you see one. It seems a surprise that that's coming out now, especially seeing that they actually have a standardized method of reporting UAPs for the Navy and the Air Force already, and they've had for the last 2 years that we know of. What do you think about
that? I mean, to be honest, pick any random episode of X-Files and you'd have learned more about all of this than you got in this report. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Chris Carter and the guys, X-Files ran for 10 seasons. They're way ahead of anything that's in the U.S. Navy leaked videos or whatever. And so if I would always recommend, if somebody really wants to know what's going on, I would ignore this report and watch the X-Files.
Yeah, man. Somebody said to me, they go, well, that burger's got that burger's got nothing on it. And then like, that burger hasn't even got anything. They just delivered a plate and a bill, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But they go on in the next, on page 3, start talking about sensor anomalies and how some of these objects that they're seeing can be sensor anomalies. I have an immediate problem with that. They understand this technology really, really well, and they know how to filter out sensor anomalies. Radar particularly automatically senses out lots of anomalies that they understand. That's why we used to get lots of false positives at the start of and towards the end of World War II, I should say, during the UFO flap, the Battle of Washington and all this sort of thing. So I don't buy that for a second, that any of these things could be so, or if they were sensor anomalies, they would filter them out straight away. They would immediately go, actually, that is a sensor anomaly, because they understand them really well, don't they?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, we've, for these weapon systems and imaging systems, we've spent billions of dollars to develop. And if you look at, let's say you look at the leaked videos, the gimbal video, the Tic Tac videos, etc. Those aren't sensor anomalies. The sensor anomaly is the screen goes blank, or the text appears upside down, or the screen just turns off, or just something. But here's something that the imager captured and the tracking system was able to track. That's not a sensor anomaly. It was locked on, especially the Tic Tac video, showing the high-speed flight. It's something it had been locked onto, and it was being tracked. That's not an anomaly. That's an actual object in real space within, on the planet Earth that someone is looking at. I mean, plus, exactly. It wasn't, and I may be wrong here, but wasn't some of the pilots also watching this visually with their eyeballs?
Well, exactly. Fravor reported seeing it, and the other pilot whose name escapes me, and obviously the other pilot that actually recorded the Tic Tacs, that wasn't Fravor. He basically went, "Oh, you flying over there? I've seen something. Go and have a look for me and try and record it if you can." And this other pilot did. They go on to talk about most UAP reports that they looked at, because they only looked at 2004 to 2021. The report actually says, look, you weren't specific enough when you told us what to do. So all we've looked at is 2004 to 2021. But that will include the Tic Tac video, which isn't mentioned. The Omaha incident recently, not mentioned. The gimbal video, like you say, and the Speedster video. They say most UAP reported as they believe are as physical objects, because there are multiple sensors involved. So they're talking about not just eyewitness, but they're talking about radar, some of these FLIR technologies that they're using, and so on and so on. When you look at the numbers a bit later, it's actually more like about 50 to 60%, which is apparently most. That they talk about multiple systems, but then they don't say actually what the other percentage is. Is it just one? Is it two? What do they mean by multiple? It's again one of these things that they're very vague on this summary. Yeah, we should say this is a summary. This isn't the full report either that we've been given.
This is an introduction to the summary.
Yeah, really.
The thing, and nowhere in here, does anybody mention the eyewitness reports of these pilots? And they talk about sensor anomalies. We don't know what it is. Was it really there? Was this? But here we have trained U.S. naval pilots saying, "Oh, visually, eyes on target. Let me see if I can get my camera on it." So obviously, the thing was there. It wasn't a sensor anomaly. Unless we had 3 different jet fighter pilots all having strokes at the same time with the same hallucination.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, let's fly up to 30,000 feet and drop some shrooms, man. Yeah. I don't think it's happening. At least I hope it's not.
Yeah. The Americans, there was a rumor back in the day when we were fighting in the Gulf War that if you wanted to sneak onto an American base or get American intel, like the reporters and stuff, that you would take cans of peaches and cream round, because the American soldiers were all so stoned that they were craving sweets, anything sweet. So hey, you might not be that far off these pilots flying around. Throwing mushrooms.
Dude, we just get some nachos up here, man.
Yeah, man. So they do identify the 5 characteristics that they say they're looking at. So, or the 5 potential explanations. They talk about airborne clutter, which could be anything. Natural phenomena. So, when it is swamp gas, occasionally, that shit happens, apparently. And light bouncing off Venus, etc. US industrial programs, so I assume they mean like spy planes.
Right.
Foreign systems, more spy planes. And then my favorite, other. It's just, that's a nice way. I wanted to be in the meeting and I go, right, okay, there's aliens flying over our bases. We can't call them aliens. What do we call them? Unknowns? Oh, unknowns that's a bit, I'm not sure about unknowns. We've got to read it.
Everything else
3 o'clock in the morning. Fuck it. Other. Just go with other.
Just go with other. We'll take everything other than those other items, airborne clutter, etc. We'll take everything else in the known and unknown universe and put it in the other bin. It's
Yeah,
in a
bin.
bin.
That's the word they call it, isn't it?
No one has to worry about it. We'll even put a lid on the bin. Yeah.
Oh, it's a nonsense. I actually think this paper actually contradicts itself a couple of times as well. At one point, it says they've got really good data.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Awaken Soul. How are you? Good to join us. They've got really good data from really good sensors, and several of these, and they have multiple systems that are tracking this technology. And then on the top of page 4, we've got limited data. We can't make any conclusions.
We
don't make their mind up.
Yeah.
We don't know. It's just, I mean, it contradicts itself in a couple of places. It's incredibly vague in other places, and then very specific in some places. I'm going to talk a bit about the wording and how I think it's on purpose a bit later, but this is quite a glaring contradiction, and nobody. It seems quite obvious to me that they're picking and choosing what to say here. What do you think about that? That in, like I say, in some cases it does seem to contradict itself.
Well, I mean, it is. I think every government document at some point in time contradicts itself. The U.S. Constitution does that. It espouses freedom, but yet, no, blacks doesn't. That slaves don't matter. I mean, they're taxed property. So I mean, even with that, there's a contradiction. But here, I think my takeaway is that if you have all the data you need, you don't need to ask for more money.
Yeah.
I think this is all about money, or at least.
I tell you what, the first time they mention more money is on the page, but I think they get all the way to page 5 until they actually start asking for more money. So they say there's a small amount of data supporting high-speed objects with no discernible propulsion. Everywhere else, they've got numbers for everything else. They know that there's 18 incidents of 21 observers that saw unexplainable flight characteristics. So they know that. But then when it comes to the high-speed objects with no discernible propulsion, that's a small amount. What's a small amount?
Yeah.
That could be any of them.
Yeah.
And that was the point they said, sort of, if you want us to look into this a bit more, we're going to need more funding. My arse. But we'll talk about the funding again in a minute, because that's just...
Right, that's a whole kettle of fish.
One thing they mention here is that I thought was really interesting, that some aircraft have actually recorded, and they gloss over this really quickly, RF energy during UAP instance, so radio frequency energy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't mention anything else with that. What energy? How?
Yeah.
How did
what
they detect
frequency?
It?
What power? How many watts?
Did it stay a while? Were they able to think? Was there further investigation into that?
What was the radio source moving? Was the radio source stationary? Was it below water? Well, yeah, it's just like, boop.
Yeah, we detected some.
Yeah,
Don't ask.
Yeah.
That's just, oh man. Again, though, there's no number with that, no data to back that up. But again, I know this is just the uncensored summary, but that's such an important piece of information, and they just go, yeah, that'll do. Nothing else to see. Don't talk about that anymore. Other thing they mention, and then again, they just gloss over it, because they talk about there being a threat to airspace and this clutter. But then they say there have been 11 documented cases of near misses. And I'm like, well, that's quite big. And that's quite a lot over a 15-year period. So you're saying about there's at least one near miss a year on average, say.
Yeah.
Not quite, of a UAP near miss. And that pilot's obviously got close enough to maybe, get really up close and personal. I know a near miss, though, with an aircraft can mean anything's like a mile. The airplanes don't like other airplanes being near them, do they? But because they have accidents. But that's quite a big thing, I think.
Yeah, that was the first time I heard of the near miss scenario. Now according in the FAA here in American airspace, a near miss is in proximity of less than 500 feet of another aircraft.
Yeah, close.
That's
planes,
you know,
particularly
and
speed.
right.
That's
That's
pretty
fast
scary.
and
There's
that's
been
close.
11.
Yeah, and
And again, they gloss over it.
and they gloss over. I mean, that is shocking.
Mm.
I mean, to me, I mean, that was a near miss. I never heard anything about a near miss, and and that's 500 feet.
They talk about 11 of them. It's incredible. They talk about security risk as well.
Yep.
So the next thing is that a lot of these things happen near military bases. It's observed disrupting training. They mentioned it being disrupting training 2 or 3 times. That again is a major problem. These training exercises cost billions of dollars, and they're talking about them being disrupted by UAPs and different things. Again, no details.
Right.
But we know, like the recent Omaha, that was during an exercise. So and then that was disrupted because something kept flying around the naval vessel on 3 or 4 separate nights, and there was up to 50 of them at one point. So that would be a little bit disruptive. But all they said there was that they'll continue to monitor it. There's no specific evidence either way. We'll continue to monitor it. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. That is when actually UAPs or something are actually like getting in the faces of our military, and they're just going to monitor it.
Yeah. Oh, we're just going to look at it. Yeah. Disregard the near misses, and I'm guessing these are F-35s that they're talking about near miss because those
F-15s. Yeah, the
F-15.
one was an F-15. We know
The one
about
with
it.
F-15, yeah.
Jesus
And the
Christ.
F-35s has got all the high end sensor arrays built in. Jesus Christ, those things are almost $500 million a plane.
But also the radar systems they've got nowadays. That if to have a near miss with another aircraft, you either have to be particularly a military aircraft, that there's no civilian aircraft around. I appreciate that around civilian airports you sometimes get near misses because there's just so many damn airplanes.
Because they're all flying in and at each other,
Yeah. They stack them, don't they, to try and... I mean, you just sit on the runway and just watch the planes, boom, 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 on the runway.
Boom, 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 yeah.
You know, that case. Basil just makes who says it's airspace. Yeah, he makes a point. They might not think that. But, hi, Dave. How you doing? So, yeah, I mean... But around military exercises in particular, there aren't any civilian aircraft. So if a military aircraft over the Pacific somewhere is chasing a UFO down and it suddenly turns, I can understand you get a near miss. Other than that, I don't see how it happens. There aren't other aircraft around military aircraft. You know what I mean? That on purpose, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if you're 1,000 miles offshore, it's not Grandpa's Piper J3 Cub flying around. Those have to be a near miss at that distance away from shore. It either is a some sort of UFO scenario or some sort of foreign government's toys or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not something that'd be commonplace that you'd find over Texas, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Scotland. I don't want to be U.S.
Oh, Scotland.
Scotland, right?
Great Britain. It's not Great America, is it? Let's be honest. It's Great Britain.
And this whole United business, that's just bullshit.
Well, we love each other when, we love the Scottish when one of them does something good. So when Andy Murray won Wimbledon, he was all of a sudden British, and we loved him. And before that, when he lost everything, he was Scottish. We weren't that interested. But 2 or 3 occasions, though, this document does talk about expanding the UAP task force, and that they're going to need more funding. I imagine in the full document that the actual senators got hold of, they will have, an estimate of what sort of thing. The question I'd ask, though, is why does the world's largest intelligence gathering organization ever need more funding to really be able to identify something that it would be, something that's a near miss? A near miss, let's use that as an example. There's 11 of them. That would cause a financial impact potentially to the military of hundreds of millions of pounds. Like you said, these aircraft are not cheap. It wouldn't really, have an investigation into that wouldn't really come outside of anybody's budget. So why would this UAP thing need more funding to do that when they've already got, like I say, the world's largest intelligence gathering organization on the planet? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the DoD's standard play. We always need money for some other new thing, as we've discussed before. The next stage, let's say that let's assume that Lazar is right about what was going on at S4 some years ago. At some point in time, the American military or the Department of Defense is going to get beyond in terms of cost to develop these new technologies into American weaponry. It could be, well, we've got to try, we have to, maybe we actually do have to build better sensors to see something that's transdimensional. I'm guessing here, but, I'm also applying a lot of Occam's razor to this because at some point in time, you just got to admit that this other bin they're talking about is what the whole gist of this conversation really is.
Yeah.
So they will, because God knows they can't take away from the boat budget, and now we have, just a few years ago, we now have the Space Force, and all the funding that goes toward that. It's just the military, forever has never had enough money. And so they're always asking for supplemental budget increases, this, that, and the other. Congress will fund things the military doesn't even want. Like there'll be a weapons system that some company is pressing Congress, lobbying Congress to buy into, and and there'll be a hearing, and the generals the Joint Chiefs of Staff will go in there and just say, we don't even want this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. We'll approve the money.
How much they spend on the Bradley APC, this all-terrain personnel carrier thing that was made out of aluminium, which everybody in the military went, well, that's a terrible idea. Aluminium burns really badly. That'll kill us all. But because they were going to be built in a state that was really pushing for the jobs, they spent billions of dollars developing a vehicle nobody wanted.
Nobody wanted.
Quickly mention the balloon, because they do know this whole report. They know nothing. We don't know what this is. It's not aliens, and it's not. We don't think it's the Russians, but we don't have no clue what it is. And there's like 43 or something cases where they have no idea what it is, but they do know one because it was a weather balloon. I actually saw that yesterday, and I did a little 5-minute video yesterday when I saw this report had come out when I first read it, and I was just me basically crying into my tea, going, I wanted some more. Please give us a bit more. I was so hopeful. And I said, fucking weather balloons. Fucking telling us weather balloons again, and they've not learned anything. And then I actually learned about what incident they were talking about, and I'm like, oh no, yeah, that was a balloon. that's definitely. And I don't know if you remember it's the aircraft, and you can see it's like a triangular shaped balloon. It is definitely a balloon out of the one side of and you can just see it out of the cockpit of the plane. What do you think about that incident? Because I've never talked about it on my channel because I never thought it was anything but a balloon.
Well, the balloon shape was really, I don't think it was a weather balloon because the balloon shape was really definitive. It was unique. And as some Redditor pointed out, well, I bought one of these at Party City last week, and it's a Batman balloon. And if you get the best resolution photo you can, it's spiky. It's kind of got the same color scheme as that party balloon. It's got Batman on it, Party City is this store that just sells party stuff, plates and forks, and it's all color coordinated and party gadgets and a lot of balloons. And one of them they sold was a Batman balloon in the exact same shape, not almost, but the ratio between the these points on Batman's wings is exact as it is the one you buy in the store, as it is in his photo. So I think it's one of those Batman, helium mylar balloons.
Wouldn't that be like really high up though? I mean, we're talking 20, 30,000 feet.
Mylar balloons, they can get some altitude to them if they're not properly filled or just have leaked. They can still rise up, and of course, then the helium will expand. But yeah, they've found helium balloons, at 20,000 feet on the ground. And the last one I saw one at 14,000 feet, leaving Truckee, California. So yeah, I mean they can get up, and so it's.
It's a really good point that Michael's just made here. Do we think it could have anything to do as a direct tie-in to Space Force? It is interesting, actually. I'm going to go back to the balloon in a sec, but it is actually interesting to say that the bulk of the sightings that they talk about in this UAP report, they say have happened in the last 2 years. And they go back to 2004, but they reckon the last 2 years, most of them have happened. That's kind of exactly when Space Force was announced.
Yeah.
But it was also, I think, when the Tic Tac video was initially, around that time, when Tic Tac video was initially released.
Yeah.
And we've got reports all over the world as well saying that UFO sightings are through the roof. Was it like they were going up like 1,000% in New York or something during lockdown? They think partly because people were just looking out the window more, maybe. But yeah, I think it could be. That could have something to do with that. It's maybe somebody thinks they're being clever and trying to drum up interest because they know actual interest in the phenomenon equals money. NASA knew this. They drummed up the whole space race thing, and they were more than happy to drum that up because it meant money. And as soon as the interest waned, so did their budget. It was unlimited for a bit, but
and then here comes Lou Elizondo, and now if he was just on Corbell's channel doing Q&A live stream, that's one thing. But when he's on Fox News at least once a week for years, he's been up since, I guess it's about 18 months now. He's been started getting on Fox News, talking about all this and talking about it and always ginning. If you look at the earlier broadcast and look what he's talking about now, the fear has been ginned up quite a bit. He talks about violation of U.S. airspace, and all of these other things that just scare
invasion, threat.
Invasion, right? I mean, he's actually used the word invasion. And so, like we've talked before, my feeling is I've heard this before, and it was called the run-up to the Iraq War, from George W. Bush.
Yeah.
And so I think this is something to do with either trying to exploit the technology that of aircraft or spacecraft we've captured from other civilization, or the DoD just needs more toys.
Well, they always need more toys, don't they? Baz has just told us off there for using the C word a little bit too often. Corbell.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. My apologies.
I would never use the C word. My mother would kill me.
Well, as Greer has said, it's always about fear.
Aliens. Yeah. And I mean, it actually does have a point. And I was going to say, if alien civilizations are visiting us, they're not a threat. They're not a threat to us as a civilization anyway, because we wouldn't be here if they were. So I think we can start, we can knock that on the head. And Bazza, he's just said, don't start talking about Greer either, please. We're not done it. It's too boring. I did get an interesting comment today, though, you mentioned about how ufologists are becoming like a religion. And they said a lot of you are praying to UFOs. And I'm like, oh, okay. Every group has an extreme. I could write about vegans and talk about extreme vegans and make them look stupid. Vegans are stupid, but save the planet if we all did it. But there were extremes and things. We said, but we don't pray to aliens because, some of you guys are there. You're cyclically linking to aliens. What's the difference?
Well, there is a group that kind of prays to aliens. This is a whole other show you and I have to do.
Yeah, well, there's a few cults as well, isn't there?
The Cassiopeians.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Exactly.
Jesus.
We'll do that. We'll talk about that another time, like I said. We'll
Yeah.
be focused at the moment.
I'll send you shit, man.
Yeah, man, let's do it. I love talking about that crap. I love talking about crazy people. It's always fun. So just go back to the balloon. I honestly think this was like the one truth they could give us. So we've got one.
Right.
Here it is. And I think they even knew, because I say I've never talked about that photo on my channel. I've done TikTok, I've done gimbal, I've done that. Because as soon as I saw that photo, I was just like, I think that's a balloon. And never bothered to give it any time now. I'm not mentioning Nick Pope. Baz has just come up. Mention Nick Pope. Mention Nick Pope. No. He's another bellend. I've done a video. Go find my Nick Pope video. Such a bellend. He's British, but I'll give him that bit. So
is he British or Scottish?
Oh, I don't care. Oh, to be fair, he's English. He is actually English.
Oh, you're screwed.
Well, we can still have idiots. But anyway, every country's got an idiot. He's just has. He's just, actually, to be fair, Nick Pope, he's not an idiot. He's just got a niche. He's gone, all this alien stuff's worth a bit of money.
There you go.
He's got a career.
I can make a house payment off of this.
Exactly, and he does okay out of it. Yeah, he does now live in the US, Baz has just said. So he has emigrated. But the balloon to me was just like, is that one lie that then they can wrap all the BS around, sort of thing. So they go, we've got the one that's obvious. Right. I knew that as soon as I saw it, it was almost certainly a Mylar balloon. And it doesn't look anything like any sort of UFO or alien vehicle that we've ever seen. So that to me was obvious. But then they've just glossed over again. They've glossed over it. Okay. Yeah, we know that was definitely a balloon. Yeah. And then there's 43 other ones that we don't know what they are. But they just move on. Next. It's just unbelievable.
We know half on all these UFO Facebook groups, you start looking and say, "Oh, I saw this. It's a UFO," and you look at it. No, that's a Mylar balloon, and it's the number 4. Yeah. Somebody had the 40th anniversary or whatever, and there's this little 4 tumbling, across the skyline, and you just want to slap it. I mean, you see it every single day. Someone posts a Mylar balloon picture, and they start screaming. And then everybody piles, "Oh my God, were you scared?"
Yeah. I actually saw somebody literally only a couple of days ago posted another picture of you remember the blimp last year that everybody stopped and looked at? But then we immediately realized, oh, it's the blimp. But somebody really did it. They did 3 compared to each other, but one of them was the blimp. And I just want to go, you just don't want to start a conversation with them, do you? Because, that's moron.
Because they might write back. You don't want to talk to
them. I start conversations with enough people. I wish I hadn't. Have you seen any of the debunking videos that have already gone on, though? Debunking. The people that don't believe this is alien technology and have already come in and sort of started talking about what's in the report. I've seen a couple. They all start with, "This is quite a good report, isn't it?" Have you seen any?
I've seen a couple of those, and I'm just kind of sitting by and said, how do you even say that and try to claim any kind of intellectual honesty? It's on the face of this, I think you and I will agree this is a very disappointing report. It has, as I was complaining about yesterday or earlier, well, are there any specs? I mean, what was the highest altitude that you've recorded? What was the lowest altitude? What was the speeds? And what do you have any ideas of mass or vehicle density? Any kind of gravimetric data on what? Tell us something. We figured out one in a balloon. That's all we got. That was the one definitive statement other than we need money.
Satellite imagery. They haven't mentioned that in this report at all. And
that's a really good point.
That guy that was the old director under Trump of intelligence, he said they have satellite imagery. And that would be interesting to see. And they've not mentioned that at all.
Sorry, yeah. Well, I was just going to say a lot of these war games do have satellite imagery, recording, so they can get a theater-wide vision of what's going on and how the training works and all like that. That's a really good point. Maybe that's in the 90-page congressional version, the classified version.
Well, let's see. But I mean, I always think the Americans, particularly of mainland America and other places, have pretty good, a redundant satellite imagery. Where they can go back, and if an incident happens, they can go back and look, and they might only have snapshots, but they would have something. So that would be interesting. But I think this is interesting from what it doesn't say as much as what it does say. But we'll talk about that in a sec as well. But the one thing I've seen about the debunkers, and there is the Mike West or something, or Mick West or something. I've forgotten his name now. That is quite. It's been quite vocal about debunking the gimbal video and the speedster video and stuff. What do you think? I think he thinks that's a bird or something. But he seems to. They seem to focus on the numbers quite a lot to me.
Right.
For one thing, he said that so there's half of these cases. So half the cases have got several different systems. So radar, FLIR, eyewitnesses, so on and so on. So we've got lots of nice info. We then talk about some of these encounters are recording vehicles that travel at extraordinary speed and so on and so on. So they must be in the other half. They must be in the half of viewing, half of the eyewitness statements that we don't have good data for, because if we did have, that would be conclusive evidence, sort of thing. So it must be in the ones that's only got like one witness. It must be. And that's a massive assumption. You don't know that. But they've just focused on that and it's gone, that's it then. And then the fact that there's only like 11 near misses, that's not many, is it? And they don't seem to get past the point of like once would be definitive and change the world,
Honest to God, I mean, a near miss in aviation circles, near miss is a really big deal.
Yeah. It's probably squeaky bum time. Yeah.
It certainly is. One thing I was wanting to mention a little bit earlier was we're trying to figure out why this is so bland.
Yeah.
And one reason I think it may be so bland is that if we release the sensor data, it allows everybody else to know what we're looking for in detail, and they can build sensors to this specification. And then if they do that, then the United States would not be the only nation state that has this new sensor technology. So if you don't know what you're looking at, you can't build a sensor for it. And so I think that's one reason why it's so bland, is why we don't have any specifications for what we're looking at. And we don't have gravimetric data, no real speed, velocity, altitude, And so no one else can make a sensor for it because we have the unadulterated raw data that we're only using internally. I think maybe.
Yeah. Again, I want to talk about the sensors in a second, but I'll just Michael Voodoo, you're knocking these out of the park today with your comments. I get the impression the importance of the report was lowered since the presidential change. I remember saying when this report was announced, because obviously Trump signed it in to law that they had to do this report, and everybody actually jumped up and down, went Trump. And I'm not a huge Trump supporter. I think he talks a lot of nonsense.
Don't even get me started, bro. Don't.
Okay, I won't. I promise.
Just oh my God.
But I have to give him this, that under Trump and some of the Republicans, and obviously Fox News is a big Republican supporting channel, and they talk a lot about UAPs and UFOs very openly. They've very much turned it into the mainstream. Trump did sign this in, even if he didn't know what he was actually signing in, which I doubt he did, because I think the main proponent of this bill to get it in was is it Rubio, who's again is Republican. I know it was joint signed off with the Democrat leader of that group, but it's very much a Republican push. And I remember saying at the time, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Biden comes in, because a lot of the Trump supporters went, "Well, that's it now; it's done. we ain't getting anything out of this because Biden's in now and he'll just hush it up. And I went, oh, come on, let's see what happens. And actually, they were kind of right. You know, it's this is what the Trump supporters said would happen, and it has happened. They're just now gone.
Interesting fact about Marco Rubio in the last year's New York Times article coming out with all this at the U.S. Department of Navy said, yeah, those videos are real. They quoted Marco Rubio and the senator from Nevada stating, well, yeah, we are in possession of craft not of this earth, and we need to know more about it. Marco Rubio was one of the people quoted in that article, and he's the senator from Florida, the home of Cape Canaveral and the NASA Space Center.
That's interesting. That thing about the New York Times was supposed to release a big story about that, wasn't it? About how they had materials that were not from this earth, and that's gone very quiet now. I've not seen anything on that for a while.
Yeah, all the things that, if you have, vehicles not of this earth, there's 12 other questions, really big questions that were answered about humanity. Are we alone? Is the universe have other intelligent species? Are they spacefaring? All that shit just got wiped out. Oh, yeah, we got spaceships from other planets. Not a peep of any of those important issues,
No. I just love that they released that. I keep joking that I think somebody from the CIA who was over in charge of make sure nobody knows about this stuff was like probably on a coffee break, or he'd been sent home because he had COVID or something, and would have been watching the news and going, the Pentagon's admitted these the gimbal videos true. Just like spitting up his coffee, like, oh jeez, I gotta go back to the office quick. He's like, shut up, stop telling the truth, you knobheads. It's like,
exactly.
Because somebody had a bad day that day that they actually released, that they admitted it was true. Because I know the actual videos got out, they were leaked, weren't they? But then the Pentagon went, yeah, they're genuine.
And I think it's all conservative effort because they want a lot more money for the development of space weapons and new propulsion systems.
Yeah.
You can only get so far with I think, with Bob Lazar's sports model. And if you want to get into production of something, well, it's just going to be more than just tinkering around in some hangar in S4. You're going to need a lot of money. A lot of money.
And they're going to have enough money as well that they can go down a lot of blind alleys potentially. If they're going to we're talking high-end exotic weapon systems, or a lot of them aren't going to work. So they're going to waste a lot of money, if you know what I mean. They kind of have to have license to get it wrong as well. If you know what I mean.
Oh God, yeah.
Like say, oh, we've spent $10 billion, it didn't work, but we learned this.
We now know this won't work.
Well done. Yeah. We'll talk about that quickly, because I think one thing we can say about this paper, this conclusion, is that it's intentionally vague. I think it's intentionally slightly contradictory, so that we can all argue about it, and the debunkers have got something to say. Do you think that was on purpose? Because supposedly this was written by two people at the task force, and they were hired to. But I said they're not going to have released this document without scrutinizing every single word. What do you think? Do you think it was intentionally vague?
I definitely do. I mean, hopefully the classified version is more detailed. But I gotta laugh at the use of the word task force. Two people isn't a task force. Two people are manning the drive-through at your local McDonald's.
Yeah.
That's not a task force for my my cheeseburger. But I think it was intentionally vague, and of course, as we predicted, it's as you start getting down, that we don't know this, fear. Oh, by the way, we need more money to study this because we have these incursions into U.S. airspace. It's unsafe. It's a threat.
Yeah,
they don't have permission to be here, and
what is their agenda? Why are they here?
Why are they here? I've seen that a lot in response to this report. On Facebook. Why are they here? Like somebody said, well, they're here for our water, or here for our gold. And I said,
the Anunnaki.
Yeah. I mean, Earth is a water planet, but there's moons in the solar system, it has more water than Earth. Water is not exactly hard to find in the universe.
Any of the moons of Jupiter. Go to the Orca Belt and just mine a comet.
Ganymede,
That's where
yeah.
all our water came from anyway.
What's the asteroid Psyche 16 or Psyche 16? It has more minerals in it than all of Earth combined. If you want to have, like you want gold and silver and platinum and those kinds of elements, well, just go mine an asteroid. It's easier. It's more pure. You don't have to.
Easier.
Yeah, but
no pesky humans running around.
No pesky humans that you have to play with. Nothing to distract you from your mission. So the only thing that would be of Earth that would be of interest to anybody else is the biology, because that is definitely unique. We hope, we think. I mean, I'm pretty sure that no other planet has lightning bugs.
No, well, exactly.
Right.
I've always said the same thing, that if the intelligent life is going to be reasonably rare, but actually alien life visiting us might be just as interested in lions as they are us. They might actually like us very much. They might be going, these little shits that keep killing everything and concreting over this amazing planet.
Yeah.
They might not, but also intelligent life might be really, really rare. So they might come here just to like creating History Channel documentaries for back home.
Right.
It's it's I genuinely believe people have to say, why would they come here? We're crap. Even if there's only intelligent life in 1 in a million star systems, that would be 200 systems in our galaxy, sort of thing. But that would still be incredibly rare. They would come here to study us, to have a look. But
I mean, they could be historians. They could be biology master's level students. Oh, dude, you got to go see the platypuses before they kill them all.
Yeah. Baz has just said that life is everywhere, and I actually think there's probably life in our solar system, but I think it's probably bacterial. I think it'll be like I imagine, but I've got no evidence for this. It's just my assumption.
Right.
Like 99% of life on Earth, if you do it on an individual basis, is bacterial. I imagine that's probably very similar in the universe. That bacteria is going to be everywhere, and simple life forms will be everywhere. Intelligent life might be rare, and if you start talking, we're going off topic here loads, but if you start thinking about like the moon and how important the moon is for developing large intelligent species, and things like that, it might be quite rare. I think there's loads and loads and loads of planets, but having just right scenarios might be rare.
Yeah.
But we don't know until we go up and have a look, do we? Which is why we've got Space Force.
That's what we have. Space Force.
Space Force. I just want the 1990s cartoon called Space Force. There must be one. But yeah, I think this thing was intentionally vague and written the way it was, very intentionally, because I think possibly I've always think there's an agenda with the CIA.
Right.
And I think they, even if alien life is visiting the Earth, the CIA use it either way anyway to cover up what they're doing. They like the confusion. They like to muddy up the waters. They like to have us looking under rocks where there's nothing, and you know what I mean. They do it all the time. They always have done. So a report like this, to me, I can just see that it's somebody in the CIA. This would be somebody in the CIA's wet dream. Everyone's looking at this report. This is great. We've got to put something in there to throw them, and I think that's why it's written the way it is. Purposefully to make so that we're here discussing it.
Yeah.
When actually there's nothing in there.
And we're talking about how much there's nothing in there. What did they leave out? And then, it promulgates what they want, their talking points.
Well, exactly. But I mean, it seems to be specifically trying to, at the same time as they're saying threats, we need more money. And then at exactly the same time, they're really downplaying it and going, yeah, but there isn't actually anything to worry about. There aren't any. They talk about a discernible pattern. So, of course, we've got patterns. They seem to be targeting military bases. Threat.
Right.
But then they immediately say, yeah, but there's connective bias. So actually, we're seeing it more around military bases because that's where all our sensors are. That's where all our military personnel are that are trained to see them. So We're actually seeing more there because we're looking for them, is the basic argument. So that's only relevant if you're talking about a statistical analysis to me. So if you're trying to figure out how many alien encounters are around the world, you would take a small area, you would see how many UAP encounters were there, and then you would times it by the surface of the Earth to get a statistical extrapolation. That's how we do all statistical things. We don't count stuff. We take small side portion sizes. We do it when we figure out an average, and we do statistical some maths sort of things. So that's what connective bias is talking about, is when you have these things where there's a large number because of a certain reason. It's not relevant in this case. It doesn't matter whether UFOs are visiting the planet more or not. They're visiting and getting in the way of our military. Is that for a reason? So the bloody report is confusing on purpose with something that sounds really important and like, oh, there's cognitive bias or something, but actually isn't relevant to what they're talking about. It's just
they complain about the challenges, the collective challenges. The pilots are too bashful to report these. As primary issue why we don't have data. And it's again, I think that's deflecting. Okay, so pilots are bashful. What's the technology? Can we get back to what this technology is, or what do we know about it? Oh no, we can't talk about that. We have to talk about bashful Air Force pilots. That gets us nowhere. There's no understanding that helps us understand nothing about this issue.
No, exactly. I actually do think generally, though, what this thing doesn't say is far more interesting than it does say. It says there are 43 instances of a thing that we have no idea what they are. We have so many cases where we have evidence. It says small amount of evidence, but we have no idea what that means. A small amount of evidence of vehicles traveling in a way that we don't think is possible, either at high speeds, high maneuvering capabilities, things that aren't possible with aircraft. But we don't know what they are. And I think that's fascinating. It's what they haven't said, the fact that they haven't said we actually know what they are. They've always come up with a reason before. You look at Blue Book, whatever. There was always some sort of half-cocked reason.
Right.
They haven't bothered this time.
That's right.
Why didn't they bother? If they've not bothered, I can only think of two possibilities. Either they're actually trying to warm us up for some genuinely interesting release of information, or they just know that we won't buy it. You know what I mean? They just know that YouTube would go crazy. Anything they do say, they'll tear apart. So they just haven't said anything. And then we've got nothing to sort of get our teeth stuck into.
I wonder if this is part of like you said, we're not ready for it, the hesitancy and the YouTube and stuff. I wonder if part of this is lessons learned from the pandemic. Because right now here in America, 70% of those vaccinated, they're carrying around a chip, a 5G chip that reports into Bill Gates's underground pizza parlor pedophile den, or some bullshit. And wearing a mask, you're destroying your freedom. And I did a video on, I tested a mask and with bacteria in a petri dish, held the petri dish right to my mouth, coughed in it, right? Put it aside, put a mask on, coughed in it. I was, I was accused of all sorts. Oh, you're just lying. Yeah. And then I did the experiment on air. Here's the list of shit you have to buy from Amazon. Repeat it yourself. And
the one I liked was I saw a genuine guy go in. These masks, they don't protect us from anything. They're just a nonsense. And I can't breathe in it anyway. And I was like, yeah, it's because it's like protecting you, and like that's why you can't breathe in it. I just want to connect the dots to it. It's because you're breathing through material, and it does make it a little harder to breathe. But it's just people have cognitive bias, don't they? They have an opinion and they will pick evidence to do. That's what I was talking about, the debunking earlier. They were picking evidence that suited their scenario, and they were basically saying that this is a brilliant report. They don't know what they are, but the chances are they're nothing anyway, and such a small amount of numbers and blah 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 blah. And they were picking out the information. I would say, whether you believe this is aliens or not, this report should piss you off, because they're saying there's 11 near misses. They have no clue what caused them. They have 80 something cases and they have no clue what caused them. The most advanced, expensive military on the planet, and they've got no clue what their pilots are seeing. Whether you believe it's aliens or Russians or Chinese or future humans, that should piss you off. You should be like, what are you doing with our tax money?
I mean, trillions of dollars a year spent on military, and you don't know? This is your best guess?
If it was one or two, I'd let it slide. But this many?
Yeah.
Publicly? Like really public stuff? The one thing I was going to say with the gimbal video, one of the debunkers said that they're tracking an aircraft. It's an aircraft. It doesn't rotate the way it does. It's the flare and all this, which he might have a point, actually. You can see at one point that the flare sort of rotates, and it makes the gimbal look like it's rotated more than it really does, because you can see the horizon shift. Right. So he's kind of got a point to a point, but actually I would say you can see it rotate more than that.
Go ahead. I got it. I think the airplane's actually banking.
Yeah. Well, or either way, actually, I think you're right. Yeah. But either way, I don't think it matters, because I think you can see that whatever the gimbal is rotates more. So it's irrelevant. But the point is, they never say anything about the eyewitness.
Yeah.
There's a pilot there whose job is to see and constantly sees other aircraft through this technology. And the pilot's there going, what the is this? Right. Sort of thing, and chasing it down sort of thing. Because he's never seen it before. Do you know what I mean? The other video with the Omaha, when they say splashdown, splashdown, splashdown.
Yeah, splash.
The debunkers say the object just moved over the horizon. Okay, maybe. And it kind of looks like it might be. But the expert eyewitness is watching that technology, sees it all day, every day. He's not new. Or maybe it was his first day. I don't know. But he's not new, assumingly. He's been trained. Why the smeg in hell is the guy freaking out, going, splash down, splash down? He's seen it before. So they just completely ignore the human element. But these are expert human elements.
Yeah, naval radarmen, they are trained to know when something is beyond the horizon and exceeds the horizon, and when something splashes into the water. If a certain object meets X, Y, and Z criteria, they call splash, splash, splash. 3 times they say splash, splash, splash. That's procedure. But a Navy guy knows that the Earth is round. They're pretty much not flat earthers, And going back to the previous comment you posted, the gimbal does rotate, but it's also, I think, because the aircraft is banking. And if you look at how the object relative to the horizon,
that's what I mean.
Then you can see
it definitely rotates more. Than it. I think that was just it's the point that maybe it wasn't as simple as it sounds. But like I said, they took a small piece of information but it underlined their bias. So they went with it and said, "Oh well, it's not doing what you said it was doing, is it?" A lot of them go, "We don't know what it is, but it's not that."
In the near miss, they don't tell us the any kind of information on the near misses. You don't have to be, you can be a beam flying, and that's technically new. If one guy's going this way, another one goes this way at less than 500 feet, that's a near miss. Was something upside down above it?
Going behind?
Or was it at an angle? We don't know anything about it. What was something just being, was something flying off of the wingtip of one of our fighters? Well,
and we hear about near misses in the news all the time. If it happens in civilian, it's a big deal. Because it's 11 of them.
No matter where you are in space, if you're somewhere within this 500-foot bubble around your aircraft, that's a near miss, regardless of what your heading is and what your and the other aircraft's heading is. If you're within that 500-foot sphere, that's a near miss. And they don't tell us if they're coming or going or flying in formation with. We don't know any of that.
What's your Poison? What have I missed? You can just rewind the video, mate, and start again.
Yeah. We'll be here all day.
How you doing, Poison? Are you all right, mate? Right, so what have we missed? That's the important thing. What's left? I think the threat element of this is important. They talk a lot. I mean, we've mentioned it already, but they talk a lot about the threat, and I've been saying about how I think this is written intentionally because the CIA loves a bit of confusion. Do you think, though, that this is... I've said, as soon as this report came out, that this is a trap. We're walking into a trap here. And I don't really know what trap is, but I feel like we're walking into a trap. I think by reading what they're not saying, I think it tells us a bit more than what they do say. But also, it just feels like... It feels to me like there's two things going on. They're setting us up for something that's either going to happen or, I think, and the other thing is they want more money. Is it, do you think, simple as the industrial military complex saying there's a threat, pay us, which is what they've always done? It's the Nazis, we need money. It's the Ruskies, we need money. It's the terrorists, we need money. Isn't it now? It's UAPs, we need money. Or do you think there's maybe more to it?
Well, yeah, it's insert the name of the enemy here. We need money. I mean, at one point in time, it's the Cherokee. We need money. It's the Apache. We need money. And it's just, and
we need a new rifle. We need a new thing. We need a new thing.
Yeah, that's just the way America, Congress does business. There is a lot of interesting things that they did leave out, and it's really infuriating because just how going back to the near misses, how is it really classified material to better explain the near misses? Because that's the real dangerous thing. Again, because it's Fox News started paying attention to this. And they're always on the fear end of the conversation, just like they did with talking about COVID. COVID's fake. You don't need a mask, and here we have all this hysteria. And all the hysteria kind of started with Fox News. So if you look at those analogies, what they're saying about the UFOs, UAPs, it's worrisome. I think it's a grab for cash. I think there is something else going on that, for whatever reason, they don't want to tell us about it because maybe they don't want the anti-mask fiasco taking over YouTube or social media in general. They want people to take this seriously because if no one's taking it seriously, no one's getting funding for it.
Yeah, that's
just me being really cynical.
Yeah, but I think we've got to a point where you're allowed to be cynical because they keep lying to us. and they keep telling us such nonsense about things that it's. I think we're doing the cynical is almost like our go-to now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think there is more to this, and I think, but because I think since the internet has come along, the government has been slowly losing control of the narrative of the UFO phenomena and other things.
Yeah.
And this is just all part of a plan to sort of like regain that control of the conversation through confusion, through other things, but also just to try and get control of something. But also I think they release just enough information, knowing what YouTubers are like, knowing what the debunkers are like as well. So I think they do it. I think this report was written very purposefully with certain channels in mind that will, like I said, we'll put this in because we know they'll pick up on that and they'll run with it. So they're almost like, here's the report, internet, go, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And keep them arguing. The more they're arguing, the more they're not thinking about what is actually going on. And the more, we're not actually paying attention to what this report doesn't say, which we should be. Like, there's 11 near misses. Well, tell us about that. Why aren't you mentioning satellite imagery why doesn't this mention USOs, which, we're talking about submerged objects being tracked, traveling hundreds of knots.
Yeah.
We don't have anything that can do that. I mean, I know we have supercavitation missiles and things, but we know what they look like, because if you see a supercavitation torpedo, I did a video on it recently. It's a rocket engine underwater, and it's insanely loud because it's a rocket engine underwater. No submarine sonar person is going to see
the fins are like
hydrofoils,
aren't they? The fins are like hydrofoils.
Yeah. Oh, they're incredibly useless weapons. But there's a lot of effort now going into potentially building submarines that use this technology. I don't know why you would, but apparently they have created a propeller that might do it, so you don't need a rocket engine to do it. But still, a sonar guy would know exactly what he was looking at.
Yeah.
So it just seems to be. So maybe that's why they didn't mention it, because they don't have a good answer for it. But they've mentioned a bunch of other stuff they don't have a good answer for. So why not? Why is it not there? It's just. So yeah, this whole threat thing is just. I just feel like that. The other thing is, and we'll make this last go, and we'll wind it up and ask anybody. We'll see if we can think of a conclusion for this. But just turn that off. Go off. I forgot my train of thought again. If the world is, why are they even talking about it? I think is my point. I know Fox News has sort of been putting pressure on, but who really cares? It's Fox News. Nobody takes Fox News seriously. These videos did get leaked. In the world of CGI, they could have just said they're fake.
Yeah.
And enough of us nobody would have cared. When this report came through, they didn't have to release what we've seen today or yesterday. They didn't have to release anything. It's classified. It's a Senate hearing. They could have just done it. Do you think there's any reason why they're actually doing it? Why are they bothering?
Well, when I first saw the New York Times article, quoting two senators from either side of the aisle saying that we are in possession of vehicles not of this earth, my head exploded, man. I mean, because that's, and then having senators talk on the record of, we kind of funneled money into the military from other sources.
Yeah.
What senator does that to a reporter? Oh, yeah, dude, I fraudulently moved money around the budget.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we are
federal crimes did you commit?
Right. I mean, we're in uncharted territory. We have been, the government has been, denying this, at least as far back as I can remember, as Roswell.
Mm-hmm.
And they cocked it up every single time. And here they just says, well, yeah, that happened.
Yeah.
What? That happened? But we don't know what happened, but it happened. Yeah. So they're definitely being judicial about what they say. And we're all kind of in this state of shock. And I said, wait a minute, that was season 3, episode 12 of X-Files.
Yeah.
Again, X-Files has already mapped all this out.
Yeah.
That's
a good point. Is it because they think that people have just changed and actually they knew they could get away with it, and that actually most people wouldn't care?
Yeah.
Because actually we can just say that and nobody will give a shit.
Right. I mean, and Lou Elizondo, the fact that he's even allowed to speak, is going back to the X-Files analogy, is he Deep Throat or is he the cigarette smoking man? It's what part is he playing? And because everything that comes out of his mouth is fear, 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 fear. Mm-hmm. And he's on the most conservative network in America, Fox News, all the time, talking about these threats, these unknown threats, and how we have to pay attention. And it's just like, it is almost like a playbook. Oh, we've seen this before. It was called the War in Iraq, the buildup, the Yellow Cake memo, if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
The government actually outed a spy, an American spy, to get their way. So all of this concerns me, and because none of this is straight up. I think whatever the agenda here is, it's nefarious at best, and it doesn't have it doesn't have the well-being of humanity at the forefront of their agenda.
No, not
Like
even a bit, is it? No, and like Bazza says, it's propaganda. It's a warfare, psychological warfare that's been fought
exactly. It's black
very
ops.
well.
Yeah.
World War II, we were fighting. The psychological warfare was almost as important as your tanks, and it's still the same thing now. I think since the Robertson report in '54, I think, they've purposefully sort of the whole point of that, when the Robertson panel sat, they basically said, right, aliens, people are far too interested in aliens, and the CIA need to make people less interested. Right. We need to divert people's attention away from this agenda, this phenomenon. And I think they've been doing it very well ever since, and they're really good at it. But with mobile phones in everyone's bloody pocket and the internet now, they've just got more and more creative as they've gone along. And I think their main tool is disinformation. Louis Alexandro, Greer to a point, all these people, I think they play that they're dancing in a little game. And I think that is directed by how many fake videos do we see? CGI videos, and you think, how much freaking money did that cost to do? And somebody's supposed to have done this in their basement, in their pants, I assume, and while their mom's cooking their tea. Because I assume these people live at home. I don't know who the hell is faking these UFO videos, but everyone does it. It's just like, because I think a lot of them probably are funded by the government, but then they just do just enough to know that we know it's fake. And then we go, ah, crap, it's fake. But it just adds to the confusion. It just adds to that. It just muddies the water. Always muddying the water. Fuckers. And I think this is just another part of it.
And you see, people like Tom DeLonge, who was associated early on with Luis Elizondo, goes on, Rogan with, oh yeah, here's the real deal, and it's obviously fake video.
Paris.
Huh?
Yeah, the video over Paris.
Video over Paris.
The TR3B.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And it's like, dude, really? Jesus. And so how can you take Tom DeLonge seriously? I think he discredited himself.
Yeah. I remember Joe Rogan with that. It just sort of went, what the fuck is that?
What?
Dude, that's obviously CGI. Come on, man. It's crap.
Yeah, that really turned the entire conversation.
Yeah, most definitely did. One of the things I was interested in this, I've just noticed in my notes that I forgot to mention earlier, was in the report, they do talk about the systems that they use aboard these military vehicles, like the FLIR system and everything else. And they said one of the problems they have with collecting the data is that these systems aren't designed for tracking UAPs. They're not designed to track. They're designed for very specific reasons, They're for targeting an enemy and locking radar on for tracking weapon systems. They're not designed for this reason. And then you mentioned earlier about the systems being, very expensive, we know these systems really well. But again, they're not actually designed for this. How much of a factor do you think that is when we're talking about the military identifying objects? That is the way the systems are specifically designed for a single purpose. How relevant is that to what we're talking about then, with maybe then misidentifications?
I don't know. There's a saying in the military, what you don't see will kill you. And I really wondered, a lot of these sensors, let's say there's a Russian surface-to-air missile that we don't know about. Our detection system has to be, our detection system is not built to identify that specific missile. Our detection system is built to see shit flying through the air, regardless of what its profile is. And I'll just keep talking until you come back. And so my concern is these systems are tracking things like heat, velocity, reflectivity.
Sorry,
They're
Stormy. I
tracking.
lost you then for a second, mate. I'm back.
Oh, I'm just running on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So these systems
Don't know what
are
happened.
meant to track specific features, not necessarily a X model, Y, B, whatever Russian rocket. They're meant to track heat, reflectivity, velocity, radar profile, sometimes materials, and that comes back in the radar profile. You find out what depending on the signature of the radar profile, you can figure out is it mostly titanium, aluminum, whatever, aluminium, or whatever. And so, I mean, these weapons aren't designed to pick up a certain model rocket. It's designed to pick up as much shit as it can.
Yeah.
And the computers try to sort out the okay, all of this data fits this kind of profile. So this is Korean made, this is Russian made, this is something from the Germans, or this is whatever, or this is ours. And but the detection of it, the reception of data is as broad spectrum as we can get it in terms of heat, velocity, It's the computers that the AI tries to sort all that data out and fit it into a specific type of weapon to give you more intel on who may be firing it. What this is telling me, when I say their sensors aren't good enough, I call BS on that. The AI is not trained to figure out what these are yet, or we're too lazy to categorize them.
Yeah, and that's why the data's poor, because it's looking at an object it doesn't know what it's looking at.
Right.
So that's why that's maybe why they bring this up with the system, saying that, oh well, the systems aren't designed for this. They're not designed for tracking aliens. But like you said, they're designed to track as much information as possible can, like speed, direction, velocity, all these things. That is desperately important if you're going to track a weapon system to it.
Right.
So yeah, I'm with you. I call complete BS on that. There is no way that these systems are not tracking all that information that you said. But at the same time, that's why the information is rubbish, because they're not. There's no heat signature.
Right, because if you're only tracking weapons that you know about, only thing you have to do is, okay, let's change the nose cone of this missile from aluminum to titanium, and then all of a sudden, well, the system doesn't know what it is, so maybe we shouldn't worry about it. And all of a sudden, the enemy is sank in half the fleet.
Yeah, exactly.
So we know we have sensor data on what it is. It's just our AIs, I think, the shipboard AIs cannot figure out how to identify it.
Especially when there's no identifiable propulsion system, which they've said some of these encounters don't have. We don't know what that propulsion system is. And again, they gloss over that, but they just say, we're just going to look into it a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I still think the Tic Tac is a twin engine.
Yeah, so yeah, I think so, yeah. I think you're with that. So conclusions then. Do you think we gleaned anything of use from this report?
Well, I think the useful things that we've gleaned is the near misses. I mean, oh my God, that was the big thing for me, being a pilot and an airplane mechanic. That's the big concern. I don't recall any civilian near misses in the news with an unidentified aircraft. Pretty much everybody knows what else is in the air, at least over the continental United States. I think other things we can glean from it is we're pretty much right concerning that it's a continuation of fear. It's a buildup to request for a lot of money, but they have to get the U.S. population on board, or the population will balk at that idea of a $10 trillion whatever buildup for. I mean, the Space Force itself was controversial enough because the Air Force was doing that job anyway.
Yeah.
And now it's a whole different branch. And so, well, now why? And so I think it's cause for concern for more conflict that we're just not prepared for. We don't even, or it's not really a conflict. I think it's a buildup to a fake false flag conflict. Yeah, maybe.
I know we haven't really mentioned the false flag thing, but I would completely believe that's where it's going, or at very least the impression of a conflict. I think it was you that actually said to me, because they wouldn't actually have to attack us; they could just sink an aircraft carrier and say an alien did it.
Exactly. You have a carrier or even a frigate, in the middle of the Pacific, sink it, claim, oh, here's our data, all these little, tic tacs flying around or whatever. And that could be archival footage from some other time that never got leaked.
Yeah.
And they attacked it. So now we're at war with some sort of alien species. And I know this, you're going, and I know this is going to hurt everybody, but that makes Greer kind of right on this point that it is a fear-mongering false flag kind of thing. I know, right?
Greer being right about something.
Let's face it, we're going to have to swallow that pill at some point in time in the very near future. So
very possibly.
Keep the bar open late.
I think we have learned a few things in this, though. I think that there was an immediate memo just after this report, basically, that was leaked saying the Air Force and everything need to, and government employees need to, standardize how they report UAPs. And that, to me, that's like a call to arms to say, right, we're taking it seriously now. If you see something, report it. And, there's no more stigma. It used to be like a don't tell sort of policy.
Right.
Excuse me. Now it seems to be very much a do tell, and this is how you do it. And here's the form. Some poor bastard's got to create a form for this now. You'll have a tick box, flying saucer, tic tac, balloon. So there'll be a tick box exercise now. More paperwork. So I think that's important. I think one thing we can take away from it is they are actually taking this seriously. We're actually getting, I think they've always took it seriously. You got Operation Blue Book, you got everything else. But they're actually being a little bit more open about it. We're seeing behind the curtain a little bit. They just cracked the curtains and we're going, you are actually taking this seriously. We can also take from it that they took it seriously for a long time. And I don't think it was by accident that they've said we're only going to look at 2004 to now. That seemed to me done very much on purpose as well. But also I think we can take away from it as well that they are still playing their bullshit games.
Yeah.
They cannot just give us a straight answer to a straight question. And I don't think that's ever going to change.
Probably not.
But no disclosure just yet. But who knows?
Almost.
Maybe. But we're all very disappointed. But I think there's more to come from this.
And honestly,
I think there'll be more leaks.
The New York Times article, "We are in possession of vehicles not of this earth," that was more disclosure than this.
Mm-hmm.
There was loads more.
Yeah.
Just that one sentence was incredible. Because it means all sorts of other things. And this is just, there was this one thing. It was a Batman balloon. We figured that out. Yeah. Thank you, Reddit. Reddit had it down. If you notice that Reddit was just, oh no, Batman balloon. Here's the SKU number for it from Party City.
Yeah.
And we got that within minutes, man, of seeing that image. Here, it was a balloon. Yeah, that one we're pretty sure. Yeah. But everything else we don't know about. We have no idea, and we'll need funding for better censoring.
Yeah, the freaking obvious one. They know that one. It's right. So, just to conclude, then, we're confident we're being lied to.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. We got that one. We're confident they're still playing their stupid freaking games.
Oh yeah.
And it was a weather balloon for once. The butler actually did it for once.
With the candlestick.
With the candlestick in the dining room.
Yeah, right.
Stormy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
We had to have a discussion about this because it is big, even if it is annoying as.
Yes, it is very annoying.
But like we said, it was kind of what we expected, and it's interesting just to try to read between the lines. And I think we need to sit out and we need to look at. There will be leaks and things coming off this. Let's wait for them.
Yeah.
Baz has just asked me if I'm recording the football. No, I'm not recording the football. It's Wales. Who gives a crap about Wales?
Wales? Does Wales give a crap about Wales?
I don't think so. Bad? This is a country that we invaded and they didn't even notice. we took over, and they just sort of all sat there with their sheep, going, "Are we English now?" Sort of thing. Nobody. At least the Scottish fought back. I'm so gonna get crap for that comment. So,
dude, nice knowing you.
I live within about 10 miles of Wales.
Yeah.
I live really close to the border.
I'll write a poem for your passing.
Yeah. It's friendly rivalry. I'm allowed to say it. I've probably got some Welsh in my family somewhere, so I think I'm allowed to say it.
Dude, I've got Welsh in my family. I come from all the drinking countries.
Good man.
You know, all my DNA is Irish, Scottish, Welsh, English, and Germany. All the drinking countries.
Actually have all of the, yeah, you really do. I've got blue eyes, so I may have some Viking in me. That's my only really thing. In Britain, we're pretty much split. Yeah, we're split between Vikings and French.
Yeah, mine's about 7% Scandinavian, I think.
Yeah, well, I say Viking, yeah, Scandinavian, North that area. So yeah, they know how to drink, even though they don't do it much anymore. I was in Norway, and it cost £12 for a pint of lager, because they tax it so aggressively. Because obviously it's like, it's like dark for like 6 months of the year. People kept killing themselves, so they make alcohol really, really expensive just to stop you drinking too much. So we were there on the coast in Norway. Enjoy that pint. Drink it slowly. You're not having another one. So enjoy it. All right. Thank you very much. I will see you again, Stormy.
All righty.
As always,
we'll do it again soon.
Most definitely. You are an absolute legend. And thank you very
much. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We really do appreciate it.
Everybody that's come on yet. Thanks very much. We'll see you soon. Bye, guys. Oh, and I don't believe anything the CIA say. They lie to us constantly. Bye.
Bye.